So, first things first, guys. How are you?
Good. Doing well. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you.
Yeah.
What I want to start with is I want to jump back maybe 2-3 years to when you were touring for Let's Be Still.
Right.
When in that process did the band come to a conclusion that a break was needed?
Towards the end of the album cycle, really.
Okay.
And it sort of just worked out. I mean, the way things were going was we had a 2-album deal with Sub Pop, and that was obviously our second record with them. So we knew that there was going to be a period of time when we were going to look for another label, and the album cycle was coming to an end. So it just sort of felt like a natural time. If we ever were going to have the opportunity, that was sort of the moment to do it. So it was pretty drama-free. It was merely like, hey, we have this time, we should take it.
Was it important to have that time off?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, in many ways. It was sort of like the first moment we had to take a step back from. It was almost like starting a band and then turning it into a profession, and a lot of the things along the way. It was, in a way, it's almost like starting up your own business. And so it's you spend a lot of time devoting all of this time to your baby, to your company, to your band, however you want to look at it. So whenever that happens, you stop being able to maybe be as connected with your family or your friends or to yourself even. So we put in a good 5 solid years into this thing, and it felt like a good time to just give ourselves some time to do whatever it is that feels right for us as individuals versus for the band.
Right. And one of the things, John, I think you did was, because you're originally from Virginia, right?
Yes, yeah.
And Kenny, am I right? You're from Virginia as well? Or?
No, I'm from Los Angeles.
Okay, you're from Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Because, John, you traveled around a lot. And Kenny, I'm not exactly sure what you did in that time off, but where did you go?
I did a bunch. We all lived in Seattle for a pretty long period of time.
Right.
And I used that, the beginning of that time off as a chance to move back home to Los Angeles.
Okay.
I moved back down to California and found a house, which took a little while. I started learning how to fly airplanes.
Okay.
That was something I had always dreamt of doing, and to finally had the time and some finances to support that. 'Cause
Right.
It's kind of an expensive hobby, and I could never ever afford it when I was younger.
Sure.
Yeah.
But then, John, what I read about the traveling around, and I assume this is the same for you as well, then that you wanted to get grounded in a way, to kind of live normal life a little bit. So did you manage to recapture that feeling?
Yes, I think Virginia is one of those places that's still. I guess I think any place that feels like home really does that to you. It doesn't have to be Virginia or anywhere, but for me, my mom still lives there, and I had spent. Like my pre-adolescent years there. So when I returned to Virginia, just being there alone made me feel more grounded, There was less people there that really knew about or were even concerned about my band.
Sure.
Or, my neighbors are just regular people who, to them, I'm just a neighbor, and they say hi, and they, when I'm out of town, they're like, sure, I'll keep an eye on your car for you. It just felt very simple. And to me, that was a really nice contrast of, we're here right now in Amsterdam, and we've been here now 5 or 6 times with this band, and that alone is already enough to describe a lifestyle that's very uncommon for a lot of people.
Right.
And so to be able to have a way to step away from that and just sort of yes, it's great that we get to do this, but I don't really, you don't really want to be talking about that and known for that all of your life. It's just a little exhausting.
Well, like you say, the first 5 years you were into kind of album cycles. So what is the one thing that you not necessarily miss, but kind of that people might have misconceptions about being in this life?
Right.
I think one thing. Growing up and dreaming of doing what we're doing now, you never really take into account what it's like to be away from home and not have that normal life so often, and not being able to develop relationships outside of the band or your touring life for years and years, and after a while it starts to really get to you. And there's even this term, I think it's called like tour ghost syndrome or something like that. And it's like this feeling that only like touring musicians would get, where you come home and you have your family and friends that you miss and you can't wait to see them, but every time you come home you realize that there are all these new things that they've developed in their relationships. There's all these inside jokes that you don't get, and so you look forward to coming home so bad, and then you get there and you don't really feel home.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of sad. Like you have to get used to that, and just to get better at developing relationships while you're gone also. But
Right.
But then again, you are musicians, and then this is something you want to do. So when
Right.
does that
Yeah.
idea of, okay, do you start missing it at a certain point? Missing being on the road, missing that creative aspect?
Yeah, that's the irony, is that once you're home for a little while, you know,
just back and forth.
you're so, you've had such a strong taste of what we're doing out here that, yeah, you start to crave it again.
Right.
Yeah, it's just kind of a weird catch-22, is, you know, when you're on one side, I guess that's a very simple phrase, the grass is always greener, you know. And yeah, that's kind of, I mean, not to plug a song, it sounds like I'm trying to plug a single here, but I'm not. But that idea is essentially what sort of came up in the topic of when that song All We Ever Knew sort of came about lyrically. That was sort of me trying to paint the picture of, like, you know, being incredibly proud that we were doing what we wanted to do, but also sort of being sad and missing the thing that it's taking us away from. So yeah, it's a real thing, and you know, I think if you can kind of push through, it's almost like, you know, when you're running, like you get through like mile 4 or 5, like they say that the endorphins kick in and it just becomes easier. Kind of feels that way with the band. I think we've all gotten a little older. We've had enough time to take the time off and have perspective, and it's really allowed, I think, you just get better at it. You know, you learn what's necessary and what is unnecessary, and you kind of learn a bit of better balance.
Okay.
So it is possible. But
Give me one example of something you've kind of discovered as a band because of that, having that time off.
yeah, I'm so distracted by the door sound.
I think, I mean, just having never had a break, you know, I personally learned that I, you know, really cherished the band, and I never had time to like take a step back and look at it as a whole. It was just kind of like we're thrown into it, and it was happening and exciting, and it was our lives all of a sudden. But going back and having some time away from it, you know, after some time, you know, I started to really miss it, and realizing that it was a really important part of my life and all of our lives, and you know, and it was real. It's a reality. It's our job now, and it's, you know.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's a lot. I had more time to, you know, a lot of my friends are musicians, so I had a lot of time to, you know, sort of become like, I would go on a tour with a friend and just help sell merch, and it's like a van tour, you know, and it's like a week or 2 long versus like a month or something, and it's a much simpler scale. But it's also like you just start to realize all of the things that you now have. Like there's sort of a large crew. There's a whole thing. There's a world in a bubble that travels with us now, and so you start to see all of the things that you unintentionally start to take for granted in our world, or like, you know, like to have access to all the people we work with that are so amazing at what they do. You know, a lot of my friends don't necessarily have that option, or they're working with people who aren't really with the same caliber, and I'm like, man, we really do. We've created something that's really, we should be really proud of, and yeah, it takes a minute to step away and not be a part of it to realize that sometimes, you know.
Right.
Totally.
Yeah. So that was definitely a big part of it. So then when you come back on the road, you just want to be better. You just want to be a better person when you're around all these people, because you're like, yeah, this is
quite good.
Yeah, you know. So
when was the moment that you kind of got together again? And do you remember that first initial kind of get together?
Yeah, it was pretty much like halfway through the year of 2016, May, I guess, May or June. We got
2015.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God, a whole year went by.
Yeah, it
See?
would have been 6 months ago that we
Well, I know, well,
got
that's-
together to write. Yeah,
That's oh wow, you're right. Oh yeah, we wrote it and we recorded.
Yeah, as well.
Oh, see, so the time flies, man. I guess it was mid 2015. So we all had 6 pure months off of, like, literally, you know, we don't have to see each other if we don't want to. And then midway through the year we got back together and we rented a studio / house in this town in California called Stinson Beach, which is about 45 minutes north of San Francisco in the Bay Area. And it was beautiful, and it was like sunny and just perfect weather, and we all were either living in the place or Kenny and Chris had like a beach bungalow, just
right
like 5 minutes down the street.
We'd wake up and like hang out on the beach for a bit before going up to write all day. And the studio had these like giant floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the ocean, and it was just like the most positive place you could be at to try to be creative and to work together. And that was our first experience together after this big break, so it was really special there.
Which, just saying that out loud or hearing you say it sounds so. It sounds like something you would read about a band in a magazine, but when you're doing it, it just feels like this is where we are like gonna have to make music. So let's start working. You don't think of it as this like.
Sure.
That already sounds like a story that I've heard somewhere, but it's our lives, and it doesn't feel that way. But yeah, there was definitely a moment where we were like, okay, like let's see if we still have the touch together, because we just stopped playing music together. Playing music, we had ended a tour previous year, but writing music together, it had been not since Let's Be Still, so it had been almost 3 years, if not longer. So yeah, there was definitely a moment of like, oh man, I hope all the places that we've evolved individually,
hope our brains still work.
Yeah, I hope we all still like make music together well. And of course, there was like, you try a song, it's like, let's try a different song. Get there, and then for whatever reason, one song just clicks easily, and everyone falls in, and it was like, okay, yeah, this is gonna work.
It is funny though. I remember like dreading. I mean, I was excited to start working again, but I was dreading that first trip because I was just terrified of the like, what if we can't produce anything? After all this time off, we should be able to go in and like make something. But what if we go in and we're just stumped and like hit writer's block and we're screwed, And luckily that didn't happen. But
well, was there a moment maybe, or did it take long before you kind of found your stride again?
I don't think it really. Within I think the first day, it actually kind of worked out. Was it just Tyler that wasn't there the first day, or were you also there not the first day?
Yeah, I wasn't there. Oh no, Tyler wasn't there, and then I was. It was like a different part of the trip where I missed the first couple of days.
Like when we first started, there was sort of a staggered amount of time when like by the time everyone was there. So there was a sort of almost a minute to get a handle on certain clusters, because also the way our band works, there's 6 of us, and depending on where we are in the writing process or in the touring process, we sort of pair up, or clusters will hang out and have more immediate connections. Versus like all 6 of us sitting down and going, let's do this now and hope it works. You sort of find these little small groups that spark a fire, and then you can add it as it makes sense, which we had the luxury of doing, and so that really helped out. But